Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Niki Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest, I'm very honored to introduce Niki Fielding. Hi, Niki.
Hi, Adi.
It's so great to have you on this podcast, Niki. You are what we call a super connector. You thrive on connecting people one to another. And if someone has a need, you always ask, how can I help? And then you find a connection to connect them with. And, I'm the same way, love connecting people, love to get connected. And today we're going to discuss whether this is still a valid form of marketing, right? Of basically business development for your business.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of internet reach, LinkedIn, etc., which is definitely valid. And I interviewed many on that. I do it myself. But it's important to also create a whole arm of your business in terms of the business development, in terms of personal connections. And we're going to talk about that and develop and talk about a process that others can implement in order to be successful at that.
Okay, great. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, but first of all, I want to give a shout out to Karina Bell, who introduced us, and I did a great episode with Karina. She's also a great connector, and I'm going to include the episode in the show notes so people can actually review it, listen to it. Yes, it was a great episode. It's all about how you can actually save money in your business, which is by looking at the different expenses and negotiating and reducing some, but in a way that doesn't hurt your business and doesn't hurt your vendors, but very sane, very methodical way. So I definitely recommend that you watch that.
That was a great episode.
Absolutely. All right, Niki, and then I just want to introduce you because you have a great bio. I mean, you are a super connector, and you basically leverage your business connections in order to connect people. But you're much more than that. I mean, you've been the president and CEO of Digital Brand Expressions, which is you've been a successful lead in the search engine and social media marketing performance agency for over 23 years. I don't know, was there even search engine optimization 23 years ago?
We got in very early on. We were one of the first companies offering that service to our clients, and it's been very successful for us and our clients for 23 years.
Amazing. So you're definitely an early adapter, and that's why you've been so successful. It's great. Okay, so you definitely sought after solution known for delivering goal-based successes for every client, month over month, year over year. And you say, yes, we are that good. So being able to say that, it's amazing, because that really shows that you are result-driven and that you can help clients. And I think also having those many years of experience and going through different evolutions of the internet, the internet advertising, the digital advertising, etc., and still be so successful says a lot. So definitely, I'm sure that experience helps you service your clients better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know your focus for your audience is on process. And a lot of what's made us successful over the years is process. We've always adapted what we do in light of what the search engines are currently looking for, and then trying to stay ahead of that. So my entire company has been built on having very strong SOPs for everything we do.
That's interesting. So that helps you probably delegate and be able to have team members that can do it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Somebody was asking me recently some questions very specific about paid search, social media, SEO. And I said, you know what? I'm not that expert. I'm an expert at running the business. And I'm also an expert at connecting people who need different services. But I'm not an expert on digital marketing anymore. That was years ago for me. So yeah, having the SOPs in place, being able to work with team members who basically create the processes, and I weigh in as, sometimes I would almost say an objective third party, because I'm removed from it. And I think that's a strength, because I can look at it from the perspective of a customer or a potential customer or a team member, depending on what we're putting together. All of our SOPs are run by other members of the team. And then eventually me, so that I can again weigh in, like, does this make sense? If somebody were brand new to our company and coming in, would this make sense? Do they have to go pulling information from all different places, or does this SOP make sense? We call it to and through. It's a concept that we talk about in the company a lot. It has to be to the person who's getting it, but has to be able to go through them to other people as well, so that the stakeholders are, it's an expanded viewpoint instead of being so specific that you have to know a lot to do something.
It's interesting. Wow. Okay. What do you think are the biggest obstacles that businesses or business owners run into when they are trying to delegate?
I think a lot of times it's a give and take. You need to understand what the strengths are of the people that you're trying to delegate to. What do they know? What are they capable of? What are they confident about? You can delegate to somebody that you believe can do something, but if they don't believe they can do it, it can cause issues. So I think a lot of it comes down to communication, understanding, and then working together. And it's got to be a dialogue.
Absolutely. Did you run, like when you started your company and you tried to then delegate, did you run into any obstacles?
Early on, we were a small company early on, and I was hiring in this industry. A lot of the people interested in this work were very young. They didn't have a lot of business experience. And so I would either do way too much myself, or I would delegate to the point where I felt I worked with a coach and realized I was abdicating, not delegating. It's like, here, you saw this.
Like you were abdicating
too much, just handing things over. And I'm never going to change the style I have of, I want people to I want people to think about what they're doing. And whenever I delegate something now to people, I make sure they really understand the assignment, but I never say, do it this way. I say, here's what needs to be done. Do you have questions? Let's talk about that. But ultimately, they're a hell of a lot smarter than I am on lots of topics. So I just say, this is what we need to achieve. Let me know if you need help. Here's kind of what I was thinking, and then let them run with it. And they always come back with something way more than what I had originally envisioned, which means I'm hiring and working with the right people. But early on, that wasn't the case. I really just overassumed what people knew, what they were capable of. I had worked in a Fortune 500 company for a number of years as an executive there. Then I had my own agency. Then I worked for another agency that I sold my first agency to. Then I started this agency. So I had a lot of different experiences, and I forgot that most people don't have those very same experiences. And so where I thought I was being opened I thought I was really providing an environment that was supportive because it was so free-ranging. But I came to realize some people love that, and some people felt like I was throwing them into the water without swimmies on. So right. I learned I have to adjust, so that it feels like I'm delegating and supporting them, and not saying, well, you just go figure it out. I'm sure you're smart. You'll figure it out. Not everybody likes that.
No, so I think you need to know the balance, right? And what are your thoughts? And we're going to talk, I want to talk about the networking and the connection, but this is actually really interesting. No, I agree. Because you have done it, right? And I know many of our listeners can have questions about it. So what are your thoughts about like building as you are building the process? Would that be also, that's what I hear from people. It can be an obstacle to delegating because the process is not mature or it's changing. So how will I know what to delegate?
Yeah, so what I've learned is to have a framework, and have the people who are going to be doing the work co-create the framework. If it's the first time, if it's something new, say we launch a new service for our clients and we haven't done this before, we would take processes from other work that might apply, and we talk about it. How does this overlay here? What's different? What's the same? Have we learned? I always tell my team, it's a quick story, but it's the story of 3 generations are cooking a ham for a holiday. And the youngest one is cutting off the ends of the ham. And her mother says, yeah, that's how we always did it. And the grandmother looks at them and says, the reason I did that all those years ago is my pan wasn't big enough for the ham. That's why I cut the ends off. But they just repeatedly do that. So I always say, let's not be cooking in the kitchen, generations of ham. And they all have heard this story, so they know what I'm talking about. But it's like, hey, stop and think about what we're doing. Especially with digital marketing, it changes like this. So it's what we're doing today, what we need to be doing today. What did we learn yesterday that might make today go faster?
Right. And I think it goes together with what you just said in terms of like, sometimes you can't just dictate exactly what is going to get done, but you can dictate the overall guidelines or policy that applies, and the way of thinking and the culture and what is important in terms of the output. So then you can actually, if you identify those things, when you delegate, it's much more of an easier delegation.
Absolutely. And people feel more confident because they have a better sense of what I'm ultimately looking for. So when they deliver something, they're not so worried about how they're getting it done. It's just, well, Niki said we need to make this happen, and what I've come up with will make that happen.
Absolutely. And I think another obstacle to delegation, I don't know if you encounter that, is letting go, right? But I don't think it's necessarily being like a control freak. It's just knowing that what you are asking people to do is actually being done, right? Yeah. So how did you overcome that? How did you figure out, how can you still be in the know, although you don't have to have your hands in it, right, all the time?
I think it's being honest with yourself. If you honestly are managing by objective and people are getting the work done, then you really can't worry about how they're getting it done. There are guideposts. I mean, obviously we're doing everything. We're a very ethical agency, very transparent. So as long as all of the guidelines are being followed, then the check-ins should be relatively easy. There's a timeline for projects. There are timelines for different initiatives, and you should know basically what you should be seeing by those time points, and you agree to that up front. So it's easy to check in.
Right, exactly. And then you obviously have objective measures that align with the processes, so you can see, I mean, if the job is being done, it's being done, right?
So for example, we have a project management system that we use, and everybody in my organization, all of the leaders, they're very different. We have one person who wants minimal, we'll call him the minimalist. He wants the minimal information in there. He knows what he needs to do, and he just wants it very simple, because otherwise it's tasks flying at him and that bothers him. I have another person who wants to put every single imaginable detail in there, because for her, that's an easier way to manage. Me, I don't care. As long as it's working for them, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how I would do it. My way's not going to be better for both of them. My way would work for me. So as long as everybody's getting what they need and there's no miscommunications, then people can set up their tasks the way that work best for them.
Absolutely. But I think you really touched there on a really good point in terms of there is no miscommunication. So you definitely, that's one of the things that we do with our clients. We document like the policies for agreed upon communication. You have to have like a set way of communicating, so there is no miscommunication.
Exactly.
So there is transparency. So that's why using a project management software is very important. So that way you can have transparency in terms of, if you want to look at tasks, you can see it, right? And the communication, it's not necessarily micromanaging, because there has to be some transparency, and that transparency and that communication has to be agreed upon, because otherwise it is an obstacle to delegating, because you feel like you don't know what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
Absolutely. And how does it make the team feel when it's not you doing everything, but you actually have them, you give them free rein to do what they need to do, so long as they're producing?
They love it. They love it because they're all professional, and they're basically running their own show. As long as our mission is to get our clients the best possible results on the paid search and paid social side, they're spending money. The clients are spending media dollars. It's very specific. So our goal is to get them the maximum performance for the minimal spend, and to make it seamless for them so that they can basically just check into the dashboards and know things are going well. That's the goal. As long as that's happening and the team's doing that, they feel good about themselves because they know they're the ones making it happen. I feel good because my job is to make sure they have the resources that they need to do their jobs well, and that I'm making sure they feel appreciated for that. So it's a win-win. Right?
Absolutely. And you it was spot on. I mean, that's one of the obstacles to delegation is not having the resources, or not knowing what the resources should be. Mm-hmm. So actually providing the resources to your employees, whether it's education, whether it's software, whether it's knowledge, whether it's guidance, whatever it is, if you provide that, then they can go on and do their jobs, and delegation can be better.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a key component. And also knowing what to delegate, right? I mean, I think that maybe that's one of the main obstacles, but you said have a goal. So first of all, identify that goal or that purpose, right? So everybody's behind it. And then I'm sure when you start delegating things at the beginning, you did it pretty, like, how did you know what to delegate?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question because, again, the company's 23 years old. So in the early days, I did the search engine optimization work myself. And I quickly realized I don't want to be spending my time doing this. This takes a certain type of person. I want somebody who loves this. And so the very first thing I delegated was the actual work we were doing for our clients. Other people will delegate administrative things first. They feel like, I'm the only one who can do this superlative work for the client, so I'm going to delegate administration. It's just very easy for me. It takes me zero time. I've got all kinds of tricks and things, something that might take somebody 3 hours to do takes me 20 minutes, no kidding. And so to me, like, why delegate that? That's not what I needed. Eventually I did. I have a wonderful office manager now, but at first when I started the business, hey, the first thing I wanted to do is, I'm sure there are people who are going to do optimization better than I can. Let me find those people and pay them well. And then I will focus on eventually, and talking about, I love doing connections. Eventually what I realized is I love doing business development for my own company, but also for other people. I just think it's really challenging, especially in these times. Everything's automated, or a lot is automated, and technology definitely helps us, but it's not everything. And so I love to be that person who will be talking with somebody, hear that they have a challenge, something they need help with. And then it just seems that, I'll be talking to somebody else a couple of days later, and they'll be talking about, I really want to do this work. I need clients, or, and I'm like, hold on, I know somebody. And I just love that feeling that I get from their happiness. It's like, yeah,
that's amazing. And that just like segues fantastically to what I would like to talk about in terms of the process of actually connecting or business development by referrals, right? So
my business has been 100% referrals for 23 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're a digital marketing company.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because it's like and I'll tell you why, for what we do at the level that we do it, I don't want everybody who would want these services contacting us, because it becomes non-cost effective to have to respond to them, and I don't want to not respond to people. So I've developed this process where we don't do digital marketing for ourselves, or we do very little, because what I really have developed over the years is a process for having a conversation with someone, figuring out very quickly, is my company the right resource for them? Are we highly aligned? And if we're not highly aligned, I have a vast network of people who can help them, but it's not necessarily my company. And when we do take on a client, we truly embrace them and we work with them side by side, because their challenges become our challenges. That's how we work. And so you can't do that for everybody, and you need to make sure you're aligned so there's no stress on the part of the employees doing the work, and the client is getting exactly what they expected, and surprised actually by the beauty of getting more because we're so invested in them. It's
absolutely, wow, what a great concept. So if our listeners that are listening right now have a question like, okay, the question might be, I'm doing a lot of digital marketing. I want to rely more on referrals. Where do I start? What's the process of actually cultivating that culture of getting referrals? And obviously it has to be superlative work. It has to be like, if you don't do really good work, then people are not going to refer. But let's assume that you do have great product, great service, you have a great culture, but you just don't know how to ask or how to get referrals or how to connect. What would you suggest? What would be the process?
Well, I can answer in a couple of ways, and maybe I will just touch on a couple of different things. When I started my first business, which was meant to be a digital publishing company back in 1995, everything was new. And so I had a lot of contacts from my Fortune 500 company days. And so I just started reaching out to people, and I was telling them about what we were trying to do with this publishing project, because I was trying to inform them and I was looking for investors. But as I was talking, people would often say, that's great, I'll see if I can help you, but do you know anything about website development? Because we think we need a website, or we need back then it was called computer-based training programs. And so my partner and I knew how to do that work. And so we started getting referrals because of our experience in something really new. So one thing I would say is the first rule of networking is not to think you need to know how something's going to happen for you, but that what you want to happen. You want opportunities, open yourself up to want opportunities. And then don't be so restrictive about what an opportunity looks like. And I wanted investors. I wound up getting tons of website development work that eventually led to me being able to sell my company to a much larger agency. So I was successful in that I got what I wanted ultimately, but it didn't come the way I thought it was going to. And so that works for all kinds of networking, whether you're looking for a job or you're looking for new business, looking for investors. It doesn't matter what it is. It's this idea of, setting your intention and then being open to how the opportunities present themselves, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Yeah. So we need to basically, it's like a mindset here, like an abundance mindset or an open mindset.
I love that phrase. Yes. Abundance mindset.
Absolutely. And you want to be able to listen and to observe and see where the opportunities are going to come from, because, we are very, very much like, I think when we go into the digital world, you have to be very precise, right? I mean, this is the persona this is what I'm going for. This is like, those are the audience, those are the keywords, those are the things, which definitely has its way. And also it definitely has its place. And I think also when you do in person, you want to know exactly, like when I go to a networking event, people ask me, who are you looking for? I define it precisely but when you define something, it doesn't mean that it has to be closed and narrow, right? You can have framework, just like you said, you have very specific people you're going to work with. So if somebody is going to send you somebody, let's say you only work with, like for instance, with myself, we work with fast growing companies lacking consistency, so we can document their processes and procedures. So somebody that just started would not be a good client for us, right? So that you do have to define the avatar of your ideal client, and you need to know who they are, but you also have to be open to possibilities of connections that might lead you to your ideal client, basically.
Exactly. Years ago, one of my mentors said something that stuck with me forever about networking. And he said, it's not the people in the room, it's the people that they know.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Right. And I always, so in terms of
that sounds like Ivan Meisner.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This person's name was Jerry Evans, but that was his, and that was brilliant advice for me when I was first starting out, because I would go to networking events and I would be disappointed if I didn't meet somebody there right away who was going to, be the person I needed at the time, investor, client, whatever. But then I realized, and then he said the next thing that was brilliant. He said, and it's not always about you. He said, you might be there to help somebody else. today might be the day you're there for them. And that's how I go into every networking opportunity now, is I walk into the room or I walk into a Zoom meeting or whatever. And it's like, my intention is whichever way this is going, I'm here for a reason. And then I'm open to it. And part of networking too, I think, is just having this very active, dynamic mindset that, somebody could help me, I could help them, we could help each other. Like, just a lot of really good energy just makes it all happen.
I think so too. It's like, it's the question, how can I help, but also receive help. You have to have that reciprocity. And, and Bob Berg, which I've done a great podcast with him. He's the co-author of Go Giver, the Go Giver. And he talks.
I have to go back, and I love his book. I use that when I talk about the connective. I say it's a community of Go Giver people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, so yeah, definitely. But you have to also receive the help, because otherwise you get people in debt to you, right? I mean, the help debt, right? So you definitely need to go back and forth and, not demand it, but definitely if somebody wants to help you, then you have to figure out how they can help you too. You can't be the only one that just helps.
I like that. That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, good. So then, you go to networking events with that mindset. What do you do for follow-up? What systems do you have for follow-up?
I have a very specific set of follow-ups depending on where I'm meeting the people and what I'm doing with them and what they've asked me for. So everything, I have an iPad and I use Notability, and everything gets captured there. And then I get it into Pipedrive, and then there are just activities coming out of Pipedrive, and I'm very regimented about what I do. And I've systematized all of the follow-up materials. There are maybe 7 or 8 different scenarios, and they already have an email queued up, but I don't use something like MailChimp to send in bulk. I do everything individually. And again, this is just part of my energy thing. When I'm sending an email to someone, even if it's most of the information is templated, I always want to put something personal in it, because I feel that that's where the energy connection comes. And I want to think about them when I do it. And I want to, again, bring them top of mind. And, did I remember everything? Is there something else I could be doing for this person? And often when I'm doing that part of the process, I'll think, oh yeah, they actually might be a good person for so-and-so. And it didn't occur to me in the time. So just giving more thought in a purposeful way to the people that I'm connecting with is a big part of how I network.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are great points. I use Pipedrive as well. And, you definitely, it's great. Yeah. I mean, any CRM that you use, I think you have to use a CRM, because that's your mind. That's what records what happened. Like, so if you go to many networking events, or you met many people and you don't necessarily remember, that those notes will jog your memory, and then it can be personable, and you can actually refer directly to them and communicate to them. Yeah. And then you have to develop a follow-up system, because you can go to a lot of events, but if you don't have a follow-up in terms of help, like if people ask you for help, or if you think that person is a good introduction to that person, that's part of the follow-up as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to be consistent, you want your reputation to be, if you're a connector, you want people to know that you follow through. And if you say you're going to do something, you do it. If for some reason you can't, you let them know. It's that constant communication.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And another thing is, when someone gives you a referral, I think it's really important to keep them in the loop on how that referral is progressing. Sometimes it's easy to forget to say thank you up front. Sometimes it's easy to forget to tell them, hey, I know it's been a few months and I'm still talking with so-and-so. So I think it's really important to just keep all the communications points active.
I think so too, because it's the void, it's that, what happened? I mean, I gave you a referral and what happened? But if you constantly hear, maybe not too much. I mean, one of the things that I do is like, thank you for giving me the referral. Would you like me to keep you posted? How often? Because I think if you consult with them and you talk to them, then you get their agreement. Maybe they don't want to hear from you every week. Maybe they do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like
right?
that.
Yeah. So I go like, okay, so I'll let you know. I definitely will let you know when I sign them up, or I'll let you know if they say no. But what would you like to know, and how can I help on that? So I think that's also is a very good point.
That's excellent. I like that.
Yeah.
I got a new tip today.
Good. Well, I guess it's not you have to learn something new every day, right? And that's what
Absolutely.
I like to hear experiences, and I learned a lot from you. So I really appreciate it. Niki, if people want to find you, connect to you, how do they do that?
I think the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. If you search Veronica Fielding, that's me. And it'll say Veronica Niki Fielding. It's literally written like that. That's me.
Great. And we're going to, of course, include it in the show notes so people can connect and ask you questions. And, also maybe check out your agency, because it seems like you definitely have it down in terms of the digital marketing and the SEO. So definitely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you on this podcast. Very great. We discussed a lot, and a lot of good points, right, that people can implement and apply. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adi. This was delightful.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.